Okay, we are starting on part 3 of interviewing my mother, Judith Lynn Thorne Wagner. And this time we're going to start talking about her school experience through high school.
Okay, I started I didn't go to, they didn't have kindergarten where I lived. We lived out in the country, only like 5 miles from town, but it wasn't in that district. And I went to a little school called Valley, which was maybe a mile from my home. And I seldom ever, I probably didn't walk to, or, well, never to school. I probably never walked home from school except maybe 2 or 3 times the whole time I was there. That was the same school where my mother attended and my uncle attended there when they were children. And anyway, it was a little one-room schoolhouse, although it was a nice school. It's still there today. People live in it. And it was a lovely little school. We had a big general room where all the desks were. And the teacher's desk was up in front of us. The blackboard was there. And in the back, there was a great big furnace. I don't know what kind. Coal furnace, I think.
Would have been nice to sit next to.
And one wall was all windows. It looked out onto a
Pretty.
kind of a wooded area. And then the other side had a library in the front part of the school. When you came into that school, you came in from the side of the school. And it was a big entryway up some steps, and it was nice. And right inside the door there was a big water fountain that had to be filled. It had electricity, but that wasn't the kind that was there. It had a big tank on it, and you could get water out of it, but it had to be filled, I think. But anyway, and then when you went into the big room, the library was clear to the front part of the school there, all in this one line. And then right beside it was a cloakroom where we hung it was a girls' cloakroom. And so all the girls put their lunch boxes in there and hung their coats up in there and their boots or whatever, and hats. And then there was this wide entryway where that water fountain was and where the big front doors were. And then beyond that there was a boys' cloakroom. And then I think maybe a storeroom or something. I'm not sure what all was down there now. I never went into that. And then that was the room, but anyway, it was a nice place to go to school. I was very immature. I was a little bit young, and had never been out, never learned much, and Mother was always nice to read to me, and I learned all the nursery rhymes, and I did all that, and I learned how to count and stuff like that. But I wasn't really a brilliant student at all. But I loved the library. I would like to go in. I would go in and get books to look at the pictures and read later on as I got proficient in that. But anyway, the school was, when I went there may have been 18 students, not too many. And there were only 2 of us in the first grade, me and Dickie. And he was ornery, and his dad was a big, violent drunk. His mother had a whole bunch of kids to take care of, and she was the most beautiful lady. She had lovely, beautiful, wavy red hair. She was a not very nice lady, but I mean, she was just beaten down. It was such a sad affair, and Dickie, he was probably abused too. I don't know, by his dad. He was a drunk. So. But anyway, and then I had a cousin, my second cousin, Brenda Lappin. She was a year older than me, and so she was already there. I knew her. And Sue Hankins went there. She was a neighbor, and I didn't know her as well, but I knew her when I first started. But she was a year older than me too. Nobody else was my age, and except for Dickie. And so we did all the usual stuff. You know, Mrs. Robinson was my teacher. She was an older lady, and she was very sweet, very kind to me. And I also had a crossed eye. I was, I don't know, I guess I was born that way. My left eye tended, not badly, but tended to turn in.
Like a lazy eye.
Yeah. And so the kids picked up on that right away. You know, they made fun of me, and it was not too good. And I was put in glasses that year. Mother and Dad took me to Olney to see the ophthalmologist there, and they put glasses on me. And that helped a lot, so I could read and see well. I could always see, but you know, it was not real clear, not good for me. And but the kids were very cruel to me. They'd call me four eyes and crossed eyes, and you know, who knows what, you know. And that made me feel bad. And luckily Brenda was my friend, my cousin, and she was kind of nice most of the time. And but anyway, I made it. You know, I got through, and had a few arguments with Sue. Sue Hankins was always she was a nice lady as she grew up. When she was a kid, she was mean, and she was always picking a fight, and you know, and so. But anyway, and the playground out front, and you went out the front doors and went down a series of steps, and concrete steps, and went down to a big paved area, not too big, but a paved area. But we used to play hopscotch, and then out a ways was the playground. And we had a merry-go-round, and that was such fun. I spent hours on that merry-go-round. And we had some swings, and we might have even had a teeter-totter or two. And then to the one side of that, there were two outhouses, one for the boys and one for the girls. They were nice wide. They weren't just a little room. They were nice wide rooms, and they had buildings, and they had a front on them where you couldn't see in, and it was okay. And we'd always go out, and everybody had lunch at the same time, and we'd go out and play, and the boys would play Andy Over. That was always fun. Little kids didn't get to, but the older boys always played that. You throw a ball over the school, and somebody on the other side catches it, and then you run around and try to chase somebody. It was
What'd you have for lunch?
It was fun. We had to take our lunches. Mother fixed hot dogs quite often. They always had cold hot dog, and I love to have. Now and then she'd put a candy bar, a Hershey's candy bar, in my lunch, and Sue Hankins would drive me nuts wanting that candy bar. Oh,
that must run in the family. Hershey candy bars.
I don't know, I guess. But anyway, and then. We'd usually eat outside, and if not, we could eat at our desks. And then when it was time for a holiday like Halloween, you know, we'd always cut out lots of colored pictures and stuff, and put them up on the windows so they'd shine outside, all those big windows that were in school. And I always liked that, and we used to have a lot of lessons up at the board. We'd go up there and do the math, and that was a big deal, and some writing and things like that. And every morning we would pledge the flag, and then we would have songs we would sing, and then start the day. Now I don't think ever remember praying or anything like that. And we had our books and things, you know, that we study out of. And there was a big globe, a couple of years, I may have been in the second grade. Had a big globe, and it would have been an antique today. It was a glass globe, except it was colored, painted. And one time Brenda and I were messing around with it and started spinning it real fast. It fell on the floor and broke to pieces. And my neighbor Henry Aldridge, he and Brenda's brother were 3 years older than us, and they were always bugging us. And Henry used to make fun of me all the time. He teased me about breaking that globe, and when I was little. And have, PTA met about once a month, the Parent Teachers Association, and everybody in the neighborhood came. I mean, it was a big deal.
Opposite of today.
Yeah, oh yeah, by far. And, but, you know, we didn't have TV or anything back then, you know, there wasn't much to do out in the country, except work. And, so, they would, have, program. We always, lots of times we had to put on a program. We'd have to memorize what we call pieces, say a little. And, a few times we put a play on. Remember once we put a play on, oh gosh, you remember the poem, we read that again when I was in 7th grade, I remember. The highwayman who keeps writing and writing and writing. You remember that poem? I can't remember the name of it now.
Mm-hmm.
And, we put that on as a play. And then we'd always have Santa Claus and things like that, and that would be at the, PTA meetings, and the parents would all come, you know, and they gave us treats, and we'd exchange gifts, draw names or something. And then for Valentine's Day, we always made little hearts, and decorated with hearts, and had little heart candies, and we always had mothers who would come and supply cookies and everything we needed. Now, I don't know if that was an official thing, and if that was organized, or if some of them just came. I don't remember anything about that. Probably, it probably was organized. And they would always have treats for us and everything, and that was always exciting. We were always really excited over that. And then when it would, and this went on like that for probably my first 2 or 3 years in school. Probably until, well, all the time. I went there until I was in the, finishing up the 4th grade. And so, and then, in the winter, that was fun. In the winter, we always had snow, you know, up there, and, we would have, they always let us play outside. I mean, we'd wear our boots and bundle up and go out and play for our recess and lunchtime and everything like that. We probably ate in the school building, I don't even remember that, but, there was an old, or it wasn't any older than the schoolhouse, I guess. I don't think it's there now. But there was a one-car garage down at the side of the lot behind the school. And the teacher used to drive his car in there. There was a place for the teacher to park. And so we would go down there and play blind man's bluff. And close the door, and there wasn't any lights in there. Close it, it was really dark in there, and try to figure out, and somebody was it, you know, try to figure out who they were, and so, you know how that goes.
Did your teacher know you were doing that?
Yeah, yeah. And they, it had a distinct smell. It had corn cobs in the floor, on the floor, and so you could always kind of smell that. It was, but there weren't any windows in it or anything, just, it was a nice little building, really, but, had a garage, had a door, you know, that you could open, and, so we'd close it and play, we had fun. Oh, you could do things back then like that, you know, nobody cared. And then along beside that little, school, or that little garage was a little creek. And it went under the road. There was not really a bridge, but a little culvert. And, but there was a creek there, and in the winter it would freeze over, and we'd go down and slide. We didn't take, maybe some other kids did, but I never had any ice skates. We'd just go and slide on the creek, and that was fun. And then we built snow forts up in the schoolyard, and some of the boys were a little ornery. They'd put rocks and snowballs and throw them at us. And of course they'd get in trouble and we'd complain. But there was always a lot of that tomfoolery, they used to call it, going on all the time. And then we used to have softball games out there in the summer, in the spring and fall months, out there in where the playground was, out in that area. And remember, all of this, there was the street was bordered the side of the school, and the windows faced the back of the school, so we could look out over the fields or whatever, the trees. And that's where the little garage was. And then the front of the school then opened up onto the playground. And then around the school were farm fields. You know, there was a house down at the corner, and then there was where Sue Hankins lived, an old farmhouse. They had a farm, and that was the next street, or the road up. It was all gravel roads, and in front of our school, along the side of the school there, where the cars would drive in and everything, there was a road that extended on way down a couple miles maybe. We used to walk down there, but and that was where another school sat. What's the name of it?
Was that the one at the curve?
No. It was just a straight road that went all the way to the highway, up through there, through the country. What was the name of that school? Well, I should know it. We'd go down there and play ball games with them, stuff like that. And it was almost littler than ours, really. It was pretty little too. And that was always fun to walk down there and, do that. And so we had some fairly creative teachers through the years, really nice. Jean Porter was my next teacher, and her sister was Barbara Greenley, who was a year older than me, that went to our church.
That would be second grade?
They lived in Petrolia, yeah. Second or maybe third, I'm not sure. And so she was young. She wasn't married, she was a young girl, and we all liked her real well, And then she was there for a couple years, I guess. And then a man taught there. He didn't teach us a thing. He wanted to play ball with the boys all the time. So, but that was when I was fourth grade. And now, going past the school, heading north, there were curves. You came up to just a 90-degree curve.
I remember
went
that.
Over, and then another 90-degree. There weren't any houses along there, but there was another 90-degree, and that went up to where my grandmother lived.
Grandma Thorne. Yeah.
And then beyond that was another 90-degree curve, just a real short little road.
Toward Grandma Ridgely's.
Well, not yet. And then Arla Simone, she went to school. She was one of the girls who went to school. She was a year older than me too, I think. And she lived there, and her brother. And then the road turned back to the north, and it was all real 90-degree angles, and that went all the way down to where there was a Ines and Clarence Judy was their last name. There were Judys that lived in there and had that last name in that area. And they lived along there. He was a farmer, I guess, an older couple. And then on down a ways was where Joe and Ruby Greenley built a new home down there, and then you had to make another 90-degree angle at their house and turn back to east, I guess. And Joe's dad and mother lived in a house there, and on down Larry Gillum. And he was a boyfriend of mine when I was in high school for a little while. Larry and his family lived in a little tiny house there right at the bridge. And then you crossed the bridge and made an immediate right and went up the hill to my grandparents' house. So it was all one neighborhood, So at Halloween time, we really went all out. The teacher did too. I mean, they'd bring bales of hay in and corn shocks, and we'd decorate to no end.
Autumn.
Oh yeah, and I remember one year we had a real creative teacher that tied big heavy string across. There were two light poles up front. Across them, and held the string came down. He filled gloves with water and hung them off that. And whenever anybody drove in, it would hit their car window. And then we always had a scary skeleton or something at the entrance, and it was fun. We just had a good time at that kind of thing. And of course, again, that was PTA. The PTA people enjoyed that too. You know, they always came. That was a big affair, PTA. It was a real big occasion. It was a nice thing for the kids, because we got our chance to, you know, perform and you know, and yet the parents could be proud of us, and all the grandparents were there. You know, I mean, that was that kind of a thing. And I told you about Valentine's Day, and then at 1 year, I was telling you about Dickie, his mother, his real pretty mother. She could make the most beautiful artificial flowers out of crepe paper. I mean, she was really talented, and they looked real. And so one day, one of the mothers had her, Pager, I think, had her to make a whole bunch of flowers like that. We decorated the school with them, you know, and it just looked so pretty. And she did every bit of that. She was so talented.
Anything at Christmas for
Yeah.
that early
Oh
school?
yeah, at Christmas we always had a big Christmas tree in the back of the room, and decorated it. We'd make decorations, and we had some decorations, you know, too. And we'd sing all the Christmas carols and do a Christmas play, and again for PTA, and it was real nice. And we had every year they had a what do you call it, pie supper, and that's where I got the idea, having that with my students when I was teaching middle school at Tarpon Springs. But anyway, we'd have a pie supper, and everybody came, and of course we had all the tables out and everything, and people would donate pies, but they would decorate them and put them in a box so that you didn't know whose pie was whose. And I remember my mother really spending a lot of time decorating the box that hers went in, and other mothers did too. Some were real creative, and so then they would it was a money-making thing, and the parents would bid on the pies, you know. Then we try to tell everybody where ours was, you know, and we always. And I remember one year, I told you about Larry Gill and Sue Hankins' brother Billy. They outbid each other to get my pie. Sue told them which one it was, and that was kind of fun. And I don't even remember which one won. But anyway, it was, and then at the end of the year, every year, we had play day, and that was at the city park at Lawrenceville. And we went in all the rural schools. See, there were a lot. Ours wasn't unusual. There were little rural schools everywhere like that back then, in the early.
How many were at your school?
Well, I remember 18 at one time.
Wow.
I remember, yeah, and you know, it fluctuated a little, but anyway, we'd go into our parents would take us in, and we always had a picnic. You know, we'd sit on a blanket to sit on, you know, and then they'd have organized games, and so we'd play games and you know, and all that kind of thing. It was a real nice thing. It was always sunny. Oh, and I remember Valley. We always had a shirt that said Valley on it. I wish I had one of those today, but so it was fun, and we played hard, and the city park at Lawrenceville had great big sliding boards and really big equipment. You know, they had a lot of stuff there, you know, a big pavilion, and you know, it was a nice place. And then at the, I don't remember much about the end of the school year. I mean, we did usual stuff, I guess. Seemed like we always had some kind of a party-like thing, or well, we used to take a hike. Teacher would take us out, and we'd walk up and down the roads and go on a hike, and walked over to the river a few times, and it was a big deal. And take our lunches, you know, and then so then we have summertime.
Yeah, so tell me when that started and ended for you.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. School ended in early part of May.
Kind of like colleges here.
Well, I don't know. I think it was. I know we had play day at the end of school, and that was in May. And then it started in usually September.
After
that
Labor Day,
incident.
probably.
Well, I guess, I don't remember that, but it was probably a carryover from when the farmers had to get into the fields
4
and out of the
months.
fields, and the
Nice.
boys would have to work, I mean, I don't know, that could be.
Mhm.
It was an era removed from that in a sense, but, so anyway, and then went back there to the second grade, and, maybe Mrs. Robinson, no, I think Mrs. Robinson retired, she was getting old. And, Jean Porter, took over, and she was good, she did a lot of good things with us and taught us a lot of good things, she was a good teacher. And, you know, followed some of the similar stuff that we had done prior to that, you know, very similar. And, she was just, she was out on the playground with us a lot, and, she was just a nice gal. And then, and of course, there was always a fight or two, all my years with Dickie. He was always fighting with somebody. Bless his heart, I often wonder what happened to him. But anyway, he had two really nice sisters, older than him. Charlene, and Joyce. Joyce was the oldest one. She was kind of chubby. She was maybe 2 or 3 years older than us. And then Charlene might have been a year younger than us. I can't remember. But they were nice little girls. It was such an unfortunate, and they, you know, smelled. You know, it was that type of a situation. You know, the old home where they lived. They were around the corner the other way from my grandparents, but I never was allowed to go over there. And Ruby Greenleaf. Ruby was the kind of person that's kind of like a few people at church that, you know, they're always out welcoming people and always taking food to somebody and helping somebody out. And she kind of took them under her wing too and helped them a lot. They'd take we took a bunch of us when I was, you know, a year or two more, some food and some clothing down there once to give to her, and she cried. That mother stood there and cried when we gave it to her. And I mean, I don't know what to think, you know. And then that was the second grade, and then the third grade was kind of the same, you know. It fluctuated too. As I was about third grade, there weren't as many kids going to school there, and then but we still had enough for, you know, maybe 10 or 15, 12 or 15 of us.
Where would they have gone?
I have no idea. Move, you know, I don't know. You know, who knows?
And just less coming in.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Because it was a farm community, the people didn't move out, you know.
Yeah.
Some of the people might have moved or something, you know, who knows. But it didn't change much. And then, the fifth grade, Mr. Edwards was his name. He was a neighbor to us. He lived north of where my parents lived. He moved in, rented a house up there. I don't think he was married. And in fact, I know he wasn't, because years later, Jeannie Pye, my girlfriend, when she was out of high school, dated him. He was still in the area teaching school somewhere.
Wow.
She dated him for a little while.
Must
I
not have
couldn't
been too
believe
much
that. I
older.
said, you dated him? Ooh, he was always good looking though. One thing about him. But anyway, so I remember once Mother went to him. I remember her. And you know, she was complaining because I wouldn't learn anything. She said, she doesn't know this. She does. You know, I tried to teach her. She doesn't know. And he said, or no, she said, he does. She's not learning anything in school. And he turned around and said, well, you've got to teach her. And he never did pay any attention to it because we were little. The little ones he never paid any attention to. And Brenda got along fine because she was real smart. Brenda was and she had an older brother. And so she got along all right, but I didn't. I floundered. And that helped me up a lot in school. I would have been a better student. It took me till I went to college to learn how to study and to, you know, to really catch up. And so anyway, it's hard when they aren't taught well, when they're little. And Mother she didn't have any idea how to teach kids. We'd sit and she'd try to teach me, and we both end up bawling.
So they couldn't get rid of him back then.
Yeah, he was only there, well, he was there maybe a couple of years, I don't know, not very long, he wasn't there. And so anyway, things went pretty much the same all the way through, it didn't change much, even though we had two different teachers. And, sometimes I would ride home from school with Mr. Edwards. He went right in front of my house, you know.
Now they never allow that.
Oh, no, they wouldn't know. I didn't care. I mean, mother didn't care. He was a nice enough guy, but, and, I don't remember, I remember more when I was real little for some reason. The rest, it was just studying and, you know,
Do you have a
fighting, arguing with the kids.
have a certain subject that you really liked or anything like that?
Always liked reading. I spent a lot of my time in that library. I think I looked at or read every book in there that I could read. And, yeah, I always liked that.
Do you have a favorite book?
No, not really. My grandmother used to buy for Brenda and I, because Brenda was her relative too,
And neighbor?
yeah, they lived side by side. But she would always, every Christmas and every birthday, she'd give us Nancy Drew books. And so we would, you know, I'd read mine and Brenda would read hers, then we'd switch books. And, but anyway, that kind of got me started reading, really. Nancy Drew, you have to really say Nancy Drew did a good job for me. Everybody later on used to complain because they are formula written. But, you know, I just thought that was great. Now, boys, to this day, I like mysteries. And, but anyway, and I used to like art. We did a lot of art back then, all those years, and always putting stuff on the windows.
And you're a good artist too.
Well, I
Good reader and a good artist.
but anyway,
Didn't you switch schools and
yeah,
grades?
that's why I'm coming.
Okay.
I finished 4th grade there.
Okay.
And so 5th grade, it all consolidated. The school closed, all the teachers left, and all of the kids were sent to Bridgeport to school. And except George, Brenda's brother,
Older
my
brother.
cousin George, he and Henry Ulrich next to me, you know, the neighbor across the street, they went to high school at Bridgeport that year, because they were 3 years older than us, or something like that. And so we, I guess it was that year. And so we went into Bridgeport, and I went to a great big old square school, 2-story school. Actually, almost a 3-story, because they had a big basement in the bottom. We had a big gym, nice gym down there. We had the girls' locker room down there and the boys' locker room. We had to dress for PE and stuff like that.
Where was it located?
It was in Bridgeport, and it was out to, I think you're not real familiar with Bridgeport.
A little bit.
Yeah, it was to the west it was in town, but it was on the west side of town.
So as you're going in on the main street
Yeah,
to the
you
right?
turn right.
Okay.
And
Whereas the high school was on the left,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
high school was real close to the main
Right.
street.
Right.
This one was several blocks
Got it.
a distance. And there was another school called Seed School, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
there for years and years. It may still be there, I don't know. But it had the, Linda and Gloria went there when they were little. It had the kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, maybe, I don't know, for about 4th grade. And then Mother wouldn't let me take 5th grade. She said I didn't learn anything, and she was right. So she made me take 4th grade again.
Probably a lot because of the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me think. Well, wait a minute. How's that work? Trying to remember where I was in the classes.
Yeah, maybe she wanted you to skip a grade
Maybe that was it.
at first, or
That-
they
I
did.
think that was it. I think I had to skip that grade.
Skip
Because
fourth.
I don't recall going to the 4th grade
Yeah.
there at that school, but I did go into the 5th grade, but, yeah, she, you know. But anyway, I got along all right. I mean, I didn't make the best of grades, but I got along all right. I didn't fail. And, I had some nice teachers. I had Mrs. Horton, who later was Uncle Harold's girlfriend when they were old. And she was my teacher. I didn't like her. She was very very good disciplinarian. And then I still am not. Isn't that awful? I just am not real clear about 4th and 5th grade there. She was my teacher, I guess, in 5th grade. And so, we had PE. She taught us PE. We used to make fun of her because she wore shorts down there.
Are you sure you didn't take 4th grade twice? Like 4th grade at the one
First,
room,
second,
and then
third.
you,
That's what I did.
they tried to
That's-
skip you to 5th grade, but you didn't know enough because of that teacher, so you repeated 4th
Maybe
grade
that
at
was
the
it.
new
Maybe
school.
that was it.
I think I remember you telling me
might
that.
be it.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten, it's been so long ago.
That's okay.
But, so anyway, and of course, nobody knew it, you know, none of the kids did, so I didn't get any teasing from that, you know. It was fun, we had PE class, and in the bad weather, we'd have it down in the gym, where the boys would play basketball, and they'd have to compete a little bit with, you know, neighboring schools a little bit. They did that when we were in the 7th and 8th grade on a big schedule, but for the little ones they had to. And from day one, Dick Schofield fell in love with me. He always wanted to be my boyfriend, and he was shorter than me, and I was just a runt. And but he, you know, I pay attention to him. I didn't want a boyfriend.
Not to be confused with Dickie.
No, two different Dicks, that's for sure. And so anyway, we had one time we danced. That was part of our PE curriculum, and we danced different square dancing and different types of dancing, you know, in the gym. It was nice. We had an art teacher, Miss Whetrow, and she was really good. When I went to school there, she was able to get a kiln, and we did. I got that thing somewhere that I made. I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, we did ceramics and stuff, and that was nice. Lots of different kinds of artwork. She was a good teacher. And then, you know, I had the next year I had would have been maybe 5th grade.
Makes sense.
I'm not sure about that. I had another woman teacher, I can't remember her name, I think for a while anyway. And then the next year in 7th, and then I joined,
6th grade.
we had music, and we started band in the 7th grade, I guess. And every day we'd go, and I need to tell you, in that school, and the name of that school was Tracy.
Oh.
Tracy Elementary. And the littler kids were down on the first floor. Of course, the gym was down in the kind of the basement where the bathrooms were and everything. And then the next was the 7th and 8th grade wing. I don't know what the deal was. I did not take 4th grade at Tracy School. I went right into 5th grade at Tracy
Right.
School.
Right.
Yeah. And 4th grade was over at Seed School. It was that way for years. And and then 5th grade was I had another teacher in there somewhere. And I had a woman teacher, I can't remember her name. She was a nice lady. She taught me the next year. And then when I was in 7th grade, I moved up to the top floor. And
Back then, they didn't have middle schools or junior highs.
No.
Yeah.
And so the 7th and 8th grade was up there. And I had Gene Moore. He was there for years and years. He retired just a number of years ago from Bridgeport. He was superintendent or something. And, but anyway, he was not, he was a young guy, wasn't, not married, and he and Miss Whitrow, the art teacher, were good friends. But they didn't marry each other, so I don't know. Miss Whitrow left, I think she's the one that went up to Charleston up there. She taught in a school up there, or maybe went back to college or something, I don't know, because that's where Eastern Illinois is, it's not very far away. And so anyway, I had, in 7th grade then, I was in band, and we had music, singing class, had music class, and I had band, and our band teacher was Miss Four. She was a little old lady with her hair all piled up on her head, looked kind of squatty, and she was old, and but she was a pretty good teacher. She taught us a lot. And I went into band because I was taking piano lessons. Mother put me in piano when I was in, I don't know, 4th grade, maybe, about that age. And Mrs. My teacher lived there as you go into Bridgeport. There was a new subdivision right there, it's still there. And her house was one of those houses there. And I go there every week, and but anyway, and I learned well, and so because I was played piano, they didn't want me to study a musical instrument at school, and so I wanted to do something. So I took percussion, and I liked it. I excelled in it, and I liked percussion. That was always fun. I liked to bang on stuff, and so I started in there in the 7th grade, and we had band uniforms, and we performed, and you know, and they still had PTA, but it wasn't like the one when I was in the small school, and but they did have meetings and things where parents would come, and about once every month we'd have a big movie, and upstairs has just the 2 classrooms, a 7th grade and an 8th grade classroom, and the whole other side of the upstairs was all auditorium. It was a lovely place. It had a big raised stage in it, you know, and big curtains and all kinds of chairs, like a movie theater. And so they would show us movies at Christmas. We always saw A Christmas Carol and things like that, and lots of. I always enjoyed that. I was used to be I was always so aggravated because it seemed like every time I was sick and had to stay home, they'd have a movie. And so anyway, of course we didn't have TV, you know, back then. We didn't get TV until I guess maybe I was in the 8th grade. And so we'd have a big Christmas show, and we'd have a concert. We always put on a concert a couple times a year. And Miss Four she was always blowing her nose, and she kept her Kleenex down inside her shirt, her bra, I suppose. And she'd reach down and pull it out, blow her nose, stick it back in there. We used to laugh about that. But she was a nice lady. And when I was thinking we didn't, and it was fun to be there in the 8th grade. And then of course I got a boyfriend. My boyfriend was Jimmy Pegg. And I was madly in love with Jimmy, and he was so cute, and and Linda Irwin was my girlfriend, but that's where Linda and I, when we went to grade school together there at Tracy, we've been girlfriends ever since, or friends. I guess I shouldn't use the term girlfriend. Derek pointed that out to me, but anyway, and I had all kinds of girlfriends when I was a kid. But Linda and I were good friends, and I by the way, I always, well, we'll talk about church later, but my church friends that I went to church with, a lot of them didn't go to Bridgeport school. They went to Petroleum school. Okay. So I didn't have, Jeannie wasn't there at that time. I mean, we were friends, but, and so anyway, Jimmy, in my 8th grade year, I guess, he became my boyfriend. We all had a boyfriend. Linda's boyfriend was Tom Heath, and we all had a boyfriend. we had an 8th grade dance that year when we were in 8th grade, and we had it was a lovely place to go to school. We had an hour off for lunch every day.
Nice.
And we had a great big playground, and they always had a ball game going. And sometimes we'd sit around the edge and watch it, some of the girls. Sometimes we'd play, and we played a lot of dodgeball. That was always a big fun thing. And we had organized PE, where we'd have learned different kinds of stuff. I used to like deck tennis. We learned deck tennis.
Like ping pong?
No, it was played with a badminton net, I guess, or like a tennis net. It was a rubber ring, and you throw it that way, and then you had to catch it that way and throw it. It was
like a
fun.
frisbee type.
Kind of, yeah. An early frisbee is what I'd call it. It was hard on the fingernails and the fingers too. And so anyway, then we had. And then we did have the band, and we'd perform. And sometimes we'd perform at the fair. They had a big fair at Bridgeport. At
County
the park.
fair or town
Well,
fair?
it was, I think it was a county fair for a long time. I don't know why it wasn't at Lawrenceville. And maybe there was one there, I don't remember. But anyway, it was fun. And of course, in the meantime, then I went into 4-H. And that was real active. Ruby was my leader, Ruby Greenley, I told you. And she would make sure that we were involved in everything, and I learned to sew, and I learned to cook, and went to the county fair, and went to the state fair, won both times.
One with?
Usually it was with sewing. The cook, I was never a good cook. I never really liked to cook. I liked to eat, but never did like to cook. And I used to bake cookies, and it used to make me so mad because Linda and Gloria were 5 and 7 years younger than me. And so they would, I'd bake a batch of cookies and set them there on the plate to cool, and they'd come in and steal all of them, and eat up all the cookies, and they were all gone, and all that trouble I went to make cookies, and so I used to get aggravated at that. And so anyway, the 8th grade year was fun. It was the most fun that I ever had in any school year, and probably because I had a boyfriend. And the boys, and we were an organized sports team. We traveled around, and I was a cheerleader. And we traveled around, we rode the players' bus.
Are you talking about basketball or football?
It was basketball.
Okay.
And we, played, and when we'd have a game, we usually have it at the high school. Well, now is that right? Must have been. And so anyway, then the parents all gave us an 8th grade dance, which was a big deal. We all dressed up, went with our boyfriends, and we had corsages, it was just a real fun thing, And we started having parties. The kids, we'd have parties. Our parents would let us have parties. And I remember I had a couple of different wiener roasts and things, and we used to go to Barbara Doyle's house. She lived down the street from a cemetery. And we'd always end up in the cemetery, and stuff like that. It was fun. And and hay rides. And and of course it was quite a big deal when we graduated. We had a big, nice cap. We had gray caps and gowns. And
from 8th grade?
From 8th grade, and had that in the big gym at the high school, where I graduated from high school there. And we would, process in, and the band would play.
How many of you graduated?
Well, I don't know. There must have been 40 maybe of us. I'm not sure.
Nice and small.
Several schools from around consolidated into Bridgeport. A lot of the schools. Now, Petty, up where my cousins lived, Pleasant Hill and Petty, that school up there went to Sumner to school. We used to play. When I was in the 8th grade, we'd play Sumner. We always got beat when we played Lawrenceville. But when we had organized sports teams, and when the boys would play Lawrenceville, and then and of course, like I said, I was a girl cheerleader. when we played Sumner, we just beat them terribly. It was a smaller school. And I remember one year we beat them 100 and something to like 20.
Wow.
I mean, we just couldn't get over that, you know. Coach didn't let that happen. But anyway, and we'd ride the bus, and the bus would pick us up when we went to Bridgeport. Then we rode the bus to school, and
High school.
No, to grade school.
Oh, to grade school.
Grade school and high school both. And Red Cunningham was my bus driver in grade school, and he was fun. Everybody had fun, and when anything special happened, we'd always have Red there, and he'd tease us and play. And
He was Uncle Jeff's co-worker's father?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he and his wife had a furniture store there in Bridgeport. And there was a movie theater across the street there. We used to go to the movies there in Bridgeport. It was uptown stuff. Scott's drugstore was there. You could go and sit at the soda fountain. And there was another, Frank Bangert had a drugstore there on the other corner. There was a bank.
Was it high school or elementary that you used to go to the soda shop for lunch?
Oh, that wasn't a soda shop. It was a little restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Bees Restaurant. Yeah, it was when I was in grade school.
Okay.
We'd have an hour off for lunch,
Yeah.
and we'd walk. Bees was on the main street, and so it was, several blocks. We'd walk, a group of us would walk to Bees and buy French fries, a coney, French fries, and a fountain Pepsi. I had that every day for lunch. But now, we also could walk over and eat at the high school, which was just down the street from Bees, just real close, a block. And the high school, we could eat at the cafeteria too. We were allowed to do that if we wanted. And so that was fun. And so anyway, we had a lot of freedom. And I mean, it was great. And we always enjoyed riding the bus, and it was fun. And then, let's see, I've gone pretty well. And then we went to high school at Bridgeport, which was a great big school. It's the same school building that my mother went to high school in. It's gone now. They tore it down just a few years ago. And it had a big gym, real big fancy gym. It was built up. It was you could have seating on the floor if you wanted, and then there was seating way up high all around. And then at one end was a great big stage where we could perform and things. And I was continued in band and chorus there. I was in music.
Particularly snare drum, right?
Yeah, well, percussion, I played everything, but if you're in percussion, you have to learn it all. And I started out with the cymbals, and but anyway, and then we had underneath where the seating that was up above had storage, like what do you call them?
Bleachers?
Yeah, bleachers, but under that they had, what do they call it? Where the boys would get ready, play. And on one side of the gym would be the visiting team, on the other side of the team would be our team, the coaches get down there and the kids would change clothes and everything like that. And the band, when I was in high school, then the band had for a while, we were at the third. It was in a big square, and there were 3 sections of bleachers. And the third section of bleachers was our band room. And then later, the next year, they remodeled, they built a big stage. There was a big stage with everything they needed to perform. And they had, the band room was moved to the stage then. That's where we rehearsed. You want me to stop?
I'm just checking on something. Yeah, you can keep going.
And underneath where the band room used to be, they made a big restaurant type thing, place where you could during the ball games you And then, of course, in high school, we had football. And, the field was just out from the, from the, gym. And probably the football players used the same, dressing rooms and everything, I don't know. But, we marched, we'd start marching in the summertime. And our band leader would have us meet early in the morning, during the summer, I think they still do that. And we learn our positions and where we stand and how we march in, and we make designs on the field, during marching and playing and everything. It was quite a big deal. And had bleachers out there, no stadium or anything, but bleachers all the way around. It was a big oval. It was a big track, an oval track, and then in the middle of the track was a big football field. And at that
So it's
time,
kind of like a stadium.
it looked, yeah, except it didn't have a building. It was
Right.
all open bleachers. And but people could park right up close to the football field that way. You couldn't get on the track, but you could park up to the track, and if you got there in time. And and there were houses, people's houses all around the school. It was just a neighborhood. And so we would march and play, and it was fun. And then whenever we had away games, lots of times the band would go and we'd play, And they always took up the players' bus, of course. I was a cheerleader for the freshman team, the junior team.
Varsity, junior varsity.
The junior, my freshman year. And then I didn't, mother wouldn't let me run a game